particularly when you're job seeking? What do you have to offer? What are you looking for? And then what makes you a little different than everybody?
Okay, took me a second. So this is Wednesday's Lunch and Learn. This is aimed at for those who are taking the Google IT Professional Certification class or program that we are offering through JFF. It's grant funded, but it's really for anybody. This is a lunch and learn for anybody. So if you have an interest in learning some job search techniques, resume writing, some hints, tips, tricks, whatnot, you're more than welcome to join us. And just be aware that sometimes a conversation may go for the Google IT Professional Certification. But aside from that, the tips and the tricks and everything else is going to be very general. It's going to be something for anybody and everybody who is looking for help on finding their next path or getting started on their path for their career. So having said that, you actually saw me struggle trying to get something to mute a little bit ago. This day is actually Amazon's Career Day. And let's see. I'll go ahead and unmute this.
Tonya nodding. So Amanda, what's your advice for someone who gets invited for a phone screen or an interview in these days? What's the best way to pitch yourself? Well, I think it's always going to come back to what is the job you're pursuing right now. And I think the clearer you can make those goals, the easier it is to brand yourself, because you want to brand yourself consistently, in person, online, on paper. It all needs to be consistent. So think back to, what do you know about this job? Based on the job description, based on people you've spoken to who work for that company or have some knowledge, what can they tell you? What can you tell about the company culture? And put all that then to the side and think about, okay, so how do I match up with that? How do my personal experiences, my professional experiences draw on that and demonstrate that I have the skills they're looking for? So when I'm talking to somebody over the phone or through a video interview and I'm trying to answer their questions, I always want to keep in the back of my mind, what do I know they're looking for based on what I've read? What else am I learning as I'm talking to these people? And then how can I demonstrate to them that I have the skills, that I have the qualifications they're looking for? Great. Antonio?
Yeah, I think Dan and Amanda bring up two great points. First, focus is incredibly important. And of course, being authentic, genuine is important as well. And I think something else that's really important, especially if you get that first phone call for a job interview or you're being screened, is being able to identify those things that may never show up on a resume. Because if all things are equal and your LinkedIn profile or your resume looks like someone else, how are you going to stand out? And some of the key things that people can do to stand out, I mean, for that recent college graduate, maybe you went to school full time and worked full time. If that recruiter knows that about you, they already know that you are a hard worker. Maybe you regularly volunteer for an organization and raise money. People typically wouldn't put that on their resume, but I invite you to find a way to bring that up on that phone call, because that will show that you're willing to do the work when no one is watching and you have empathy to do this volunteer work. Maybe you had military service and you tend to hide that on your resume, but that's something that you should instead be willing to say out loud so these folks know how you show up on a regular basis. And it also could be something as simple, say maybe you have a photography blog, and for the past year, every single week you have posted every Sunday to that blog. When you bring that up, that shows consistency, that shows discipline, that tells that recruiter, that potential employer, something special about you that's going to make you stand out from everyone else who's applying from that position, even if your credentials look exactly the same.
Wonderful. I'm hearing, I'm learning about this idea of you have to have real experiences that you can relate and you can explain of your outcomes, your achievements, not just big words, and then bring the external part of your life into what you can contribute in your work, because those external experiences could be very important to your job. So for all of you, what would be some of the interviewing remotely on screen? We're doing that now. What are some of the practical tips? What have you learned as all of us are now moving into interacting through a camera as we're doing now?
I think what's very important that builds off of what was just talked about is you need to have a positive attitude. So you should conduct a focused job search based on your skills, the companies you're actually interested in working for that reflect your values, because when you show up for a virtual interview, you're going to perform much better. You're not going to have to fake it. You're not going to have to be an actor or an actress. You're going to shine through because you actually want the position. And in today's world, you're competing with people who might want it more. And so if it's just another job for you, you're not going to get the job, because the next person who's going to be in a video interview with a recruiter is going to have a positive attitude. They're going to be more excited about it than you and have the same resume, so they'll get the job. So I think part of this is conducting a focused job search, showing up with excitement because you genuinely want it, and then pretending like it's an actual interview and they're right next to you, not that there is technology between you and them.
Yeah, Dan brings up a really good point. And I think something that's critical also is be willing to prepare and do the work prior to the interview. A lot of people just show up on interview day and they get on the call, on the phone, or the video, and they just start going. And they say, I'm just going to wing it. But let me tell you something, winging it is easy when you are well prepared. Unfortunately, people just go with the flow. But all you got to do is look at your resume, look at the job description, and you can anticipate pretty much what questions you should be asked. And you should practice those with a friend, with a family member. So when you hear it, it's not like you're hearing it for the very first time. Second, something else that can make a really big difference is 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, you're going to know who's going to be interviewing you. I invite you to do as much research as possible as you can on that person who is interviewing you, because you never know what you may have in common, whether it be the university you attended, maybe it be similar experiences, maybe you find out online they traveled to a similar country that you traveled to before. And when you find out what connective tissue you have with this individual, you can find organic ways to bring that into the conversation. And before you know it, that job interview can quickly turn into a conversation instead. And again, that's going to make you stand out from other candidates.
What Antonio said is very important, because through all my research projects on job seeking and recruiting, I found that the biggest complaint recruiters have with candidates is that they're not prepared for interviews. And all this information is at your fingertips. You literally pick up your mobile phone and you can find out anything about the recruiter, anything about the company. Did they release a new product or service recently? What are the backgrounds of the executives who work there? What products are they offering? What makes them unique? Therefore, it's expected of you when you are interviewing.
Absolutely. As a hiring manager, yes, I will say that it's important preparation. So Amanda, we talk about some examples on how you prepare, how you coach people in this preparation.
Sure, and I agree with everything both gentlemen said. Preparation is certainly half the battle, and also practice, particularly if you are not comfortable with video interviewing. If this is new to you, we know based on a study that Top Resume did, when we asked, hey, what are the 3 most attractive qualities when you're interviewing someone? Confidence was number 1. I don't think that surprises most people. Number 2, though, was authenticity, and 3 was honesty. And so they're looking for you to come across as authentic and confident, and it's hard to do that if you aren't prepared and if you're not comfortable with the setup. So practice is also incredibly important. Scout your house for the best location. Where is it most quiet? Where is your internet most reliable? Play with the lighting. Get creative with books, with Amazon boxes, whatever you need in order to position your phone or your laptop so that it's at the right angle. Nobody wants to look up your nose or down your forehead when you're on a video interview. You want to practice those things and get them set up perfectly. Test out the equipment and the software. Make sure you have all the updates done. But again, it is practicing. And with any interview, whether it was going to be in person or you're doing it on a phone or through video, it's so important that you have a good idea of what you want to say, but you're not memorizing what you plan to say. There's a very big difference between being prepared and sounding rehearsed. And when you sound rehearsed, you don't stand out as much because there isn't that enthusiasm in your voice, because you're literally sitting there going, okay, what did I say I wanted to say? And you're trying to pull it out of your brain. What was that little paragraph you wrote out? That's not what employers want to hear. And I will say, especially what Antonio was talking about, how do you find that connective tissue? Never discount that small talk. It's so important, even when you're on a video. In fact, I think it's even more important because you're not in person. You may not see all of their body language and their physical cues. So you will want to try to find ways and really be cognizant of your tone of voice, your eye contact. Are you leaning forward a little bit in order to engage? If you're going to use your hands, make sure they see them and it's not which is what I was doing before. Don't do that. And make sure that you're truly finding ways to show that you're open and engage with the person across the screen.
Because body language is 80% of all communication. And do not look at an interview as a one-way street. It's not just you answering questions. You have to be prepared to ask questions of the person who you're going to be talking to. Because at the end of the day, recruiting is about matchmaking. Much like dating, both people are trying to find the position of best fit for that person. And therefore, think of this as a conversation and not as just answering questions the entire time. Come with 3 questions that you have for the individual who you know you're going to be speaking to, and make it interesting too. Like if this is a position that you really want, you're going to naturally have questions. Again, going back to what I was saying about having a positive attitude and having a focused job search, because this is naturally going to happen. You're going to naturally have questions. You won't have to fake it.
So for Antonio, not everyone who's looking for a job has a college degree, but you have some ideas on how to present yourself, and what advice would you give them?
Yeah, you're right. The job market, not everyone has a college degree, and I want to let you know that that's okay. We're in a brand new place right now, and for the longest time, there were some unsaid rules, and maybe some written rules as well, that you needed to have a college degree to get into certain companies. The great news today is that many organizations across the globe now are saying, we see you have amazing skill set, and you don't necessarily need that piece of paper to get into the door. However, let's be honest. If you are competing against someone who does have a college degree, it may be a little bit more challenging. So there will be some key things that you have to do to stand out. First and foremost, depending upon the job you're applying for, as we talked about earlier, it's important to have something to show. Another thing you can do when you go into that job interview is not just be prepared to answer their questions. Of course, you can have your own questions, but one of the most powerful things you can do is come in and give them an example of the work that you have done either in previous jobs or some work you've done on your own cognizance, where you say, hey, I recently read in the press that your organization is entering this brand new market. I decided to do some research on that and I have some ideas of what you can do. And you pull out a report that you can actually show them. That shows that you have some positive intentions, that shows that you are proactive as well, and that you've been willing to do the work. Something else that is super, super critical, of course, is having relationships to get access to these organizations. Again, personal branding is a lot about, people say for the longest time, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But I'll say it's not who you know, it's who knows what you want. We make a big assumption that people in our network know exactly what type of jobs we're looking for, or if we're actually available for jobs, if we're unemployed, etc. And it's our job in many ways to be humble and to be vulnerable, to be willing to reach out to our network and let them know, hey, I am looking for a position, I'm looking for a job. These are my credentials. Would you be willing to make that introduction or that connection to this individual? This goes really far if someone does not have a degree. But I don't want anyone to get discouraged if they don't have a degree, because as I mentioned earlier, many organizations are seeing the value that people bring to the table. And if you have a track record, if you have projects that you can point to with links on the internet that people can look at, it is going to go so far to get people to buy in and say, yes, we want to consider you for this position.
And building on to what Antonio said, that's really important, is what you're really trying to do when you're interviewing for a job is you're trying to lower the perceived risk of hiring you. Meaning that if you can show case studies from everything you've done, like Antonio was saying, if you have references and testimonials, and you can just show the best of what you have to offer, you have skill sets, you have certifications, you're lowering the perceived risk of hiring you because you've done this before. And therefore, you're more likely to get the job, because no one wants to hire a low-performing worker because they look bad. So you need to make the person who's hiring you look good. And part of that, and one of the indicators of that, is having a good resume, having the skill set in real tangible case studies. If you were in a sales position and you sold, $1 million worth of products, you're more likely to sell a decent amount when you get hired. So therefore, they can justify hiring you because of your track record. And I think that's really important. And then I think from a networking standpoint, so many people will stop networking when they have a job. Your whole life is a networking event. You're always meeting new people. This is part of what you do on a daily basis.
So I'm going to bring something, you mentioned the resume, and Amanda is an expert on that. So how do you help people to put, those outcomes in their resumes? How do you coach them through that?
That's a great question. And we talk a lot about being a doer versus an achiever. And people will say, well, not every job I've held was a doer. It's a doer job. And that's okay. So there's two things to think about. If you have a job where it's very easy to quantify your achievements, you want to start the bullet points portion of your work experience by going what we call result by action. Start with the headliner. How did I reduce waste, increase revenue, beat quota, whatever it is? What's the big thing? If I can put a number on it, let's put a number on it. What did I do that was great? And then what actions did I take to get there? It's so important to back that up and say, well, if I, made sure that my team all beat their quota by 20% across the board, by how? Did I coach them? Did I create a new sales process? Did I implement a new form of training? What did I do in order to help them get there? Did I introduce value-based selling? It doesn't matter. It's really important to figure out, what did you do? So keep that in mind. If you don't have a job where there's really numbers that you can tie to your work, always just think better, faster, more efficient. How did what you do contribute to an overall goal? That's what you're really trying to get across. Where did you make the contribution? And if you have one of those roles where you come back and say, but that's not what I did, or I was entry level, I didn't have those types of responsibilities, then what you're really trying to do is show, well, what proves that you were good at what you did? If it was a seasonal job where you asked back for multiple seasons, if you were waitressing, were you given the best shifts, the biggest sections, where you asked to train or mentor new hires? There's always ways to figure out, how can you describe, I was good at what I did at that organization. Let me show you. And that's the stuff you really want to highlight with the bullet points. And when I'm talking about resumes, I typically always have a short blurb that describes my role and responsibilities. And then I save the bullet points to be the bragging points. That's where you want to show them the most important information, your best selling points, because just by using a bullet point, it kind of draws the eye in. So that's what you want them to focus on the most.
Wonderful. So we talked about brand, we talked about preparation, we touched a little bit on networking, and I want to talk to you or hear your ideas on not only networking, but this idea of creating a board of directors. I've always been very fond of thinking about more people, not just one mentor, but how you do that. So Antonio, do you want to talk to us about your ideas on board of director networking and mentorship?
Yeah, I can speak personally that having a personal board of directors or advisors, whatever you want to call it, has been a game changer over the course of my life. I'm a kid that went to a college not many people had ever heard of. I moved to New York City with less than $1,000 in my bank account with hopes of breaking into the television industry. And if it wasn't for reaching out and creating my own personal board of directors, I wouldn't be talking to you today. So right now, the person watching this is thinking, okay, how do I do this? Who are these people? Well, I think there's a few key people you should have on your personal board. One, you should have that mentor, or if you're going to call them a veteran. That is that man or woman who has been there or has done that. They have a lot of experience in their life and they can give you great feedback. This could be a teacher. This could be a professor. This could be a family friend, someone that can really look from that 30,000 foot view to give you some great advice. I think someone else great to have in your life is, I like to call them the coach. That person that is on a regular basis going to encourage you during challenging times when things aren't going great. There's also great to have someone in your personal board of directors that is a subject matter expert. Say, for example, you really want to get into the marketing field. It would be great if you could find someone to be that person on your personal board. And we can go on and on and on in terms of the categories. And let me just give you a quick tip. One of the best ways to get someone to be on your personal board is not by sending them an email and saying, will you be on my personal board? Because that's just awkward and weird. But what I've learned, even even with mentors is sometimes if you just start treating them like they're a mentor, treating them like they're on your personal board, you respect them, and maybe you call every couple of weeks with a phone call or a question, it goes so far. What I've learned over the course of my life is that people are willing to help you, and you must be willing to ask for the help. And I'm sure every panelist will agree is that when you treat someone like they are an expert and you're asking them great questions and you prepare for that 5, 15, or 20-minute call, believe me, they're going to be so happy to share their knowledge and expertise with you because it's going to make them feel good as well.
Wonderful. Dan, ideas?
My idea is the approach of how you get a mentor is extremely important. So I would never go up to someone and say, will you be my mentor? Instead, I would put a lot of thought into the type of people you want to bring into your world, right? Who has done something that you want to do, right? That's the quickest way to start because then there's natural interest in that person. And again, much like job searching, you're going to come off the right way because there's genuine interest. You're not going to fake that. And when you're approaching them, think about what problems they're trying to solve or have a call to identify the problems they're trying to solve. Because networking, much like job searching, much like almost everything in life, it's a two-way street. And you should approach everything in life as how can you benefit someone else? From a job search perspective, it's how can I benefit the recruiter? How can I make them look like a rock star and make the company successful? From a mentoring standpoint, how can I make this future mentor successful? Don't even refer to them as a mentor. Instead, think about little things that you can do to start building the relationship. And you don't even have to call it a mentor. It doesn't need to be intimidating or official. It's you're investing bit by bit in someone else, and then they start investing bit by bit in you, and then that becomes a relationship, whether you call it a mentor or a relationship. It's you're both supporting each other. And I think that's so important because I could get a million emails saying, will you be my mentor? It's not going to happen. But if somebody takes the time to say, oh, I just read your book, basically some indicator that they're investing a little bit in me, I'm more inclined to respond and reinvest in them.
Fantastic. Amanda, your ideas?
Yeah, I love what both of you just said. And Dan, I want to echo the fact that it's a slow process. You don't find someone overnight and then suddenly they're your best friend and your mentor, and that's how it works. It is a process. You're building relationships over time, and you have to take that time up front and start planting those seeds. I also think it's so important to always remember, even if you feel you're unemployed and you're in this spot, and what could I have to offer someone else at this point? You always have something to offer. You can always pay it forward, whether it's just a networking contact or someone that you're hoping to build into more of a mentorship relationship over time. There's always something. So do your reconnaissance. Set up Google alerts on their name, look at their profiles online. What are they into when they're not at work? Are they really passionate about a certain fundraiser or a nonprofit organization? Is there something you could help with over there? To Dan's point, what are they working on? I think it's so important to look for those. But if you're still trying to identify who in the world these people are in the first place, even though so many of us are still sheltering at home or kind of staying away from the large gatherings and that sort of thing, you can still network from the safety of your home. Don't assume that it's off the table right now. There are so many online events going on. There are so many virtual fairs. There are opportunities where you can interact through the comment section with other people. Again, it's not just leaving your name and a phone number or an email address, but you want to start engaging with people. Start following people on social media that really interest you. And then when they're doing something, make a comment, start the interactions and take that online rapport and build it into something that's, maybe not face to face for the moment, but screen to screen, or at least over the phone. You can always take those relationships and then start really establishing them.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank our panelists. It was an honor to have this conversation with you today. David, back to you.
Thanks, everyone. Great stuff. I definitely learned a few things that will help me cultivate my own personal brand. Amazon prides itself on being a place where folks are comfortable being themselves. The company values hearing from the many different voices of its smart, passionate, and creative community. I bet a lot of you are wondering, what's it really like working at Amazon? What do they as a company really care about? To answer that, I had the great pleasure of connecting with different Amazon employees across the country. We talked about what they do and what they think makes Amazon so special. We're calling these conversations Inside Amazon. First up is David.
Okay, so I'm still recording this, and you saw that, and there's a lot of great takeaways that's going to give you more insight and more, tips and tricks and whatnot than I can. So if you're working on the Grow with Google, the coursework that I mentioned last week, go ahead and continue working on that. That's going to help you prepare as well. But there's going to be some great takeaways for as much as you can capture for this career day. Again, it's from 12 to 3 p.m. And there is an agenda somewhere. Okay. So there's one agenda talking about fireside chats. And let's see. So you need to register. I'll do that here in just a second. I don't think I've registered. Let me actually go ahead and register. Click sign in. Okay, open my email. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this video. But that's pretty much, looks like that's all you need to do to register. And if you have any questions, just let me know on this or anything else. Thank you.